Okay, good afternoon. How many of you were at the lunch the other day? Okay, so you've already heard me blab on and on and on. Today I am going to try to keep my remarks fairly brief. I have a few slides, and what I'll try to do is just give a few comments per slide. And what I really would like to do, if they don't pull me off the stage, is actually leave some time to answer some questions. So now when we get to that part where I am expecting questions from you, think back to all the lectures you've taught where you fill the board with wonderful equations or sentences, and you've done all sorts of demonstrations with exploding rockets, and then you turn to the students and then they stare at you blankly. And don't be that student when we get to that point. Okay. Everything I'm going to talk about today is also available online, which is why I'm not going to spend that much time on it. And you'll find tons of resources online, but of course you don't have to search online. You can always ask somebody in our office if you ever need any help. So let me say a few words about research and why we do it. I'm sure you're all aware that Michigan State is a roughly top 100 ranked university in the world, and that's primarily based on its research reputation. We're usually not ranked in the top 50 in the world, and if you asked us what our decadal kind of ambition is to get into that group that's regularly ranked maybe in the top 50 in the world, I think that's what we would really like to do. One thing I like to point out, often when I'm talking to non-academic audiences, but I think what I'm about to say is maybe even sort of thought-provoking for people who are already in academia. If you look at the United States in its totality, there are several thousand, believe it or not, several thousand institutions of higher education that can award an undergraduate degree. And by and large, these institutions all do a pretty good job. We want to do a good job in teaching. We want to be well above the average for those thousands of institutions. But by and large, they do a pretty good job. And the material they teach, if you think about it, can be found on Amazon in the form of a slightly used older edition of a textbook that you can buy for $5. Right? If you think about it, I can buy the slightly out-of-date older edition of any standard undergraduate textbook, and I can probably get it for like $5. So why do I emphasize that? I emphasize that because what those people are teaching in their undergraduate classes is knowledge that is already crystallized. It's already been discovered by somebody else. It's already been vetted by a whole academic community. Somehow it's in a textbook now. And the student literally, if they wanted to, if they had the self-discipline, we all know that they generally, by and large, don't. But if they had the self-discipline, they could buy that book off of Amazon and read it and get a pretty good understanding of that level of material. The question is, who creates the new knowledge that will be in the textbooks a decade from now? Well, now you're not talking about thousands of institutions in the United States. You're talking about maybe 100 institutions, maybe 50 institutions in the United States, which are concentrations of world-class research talent. And that is what is special about Michigan State. We want to do a good job with our undergraduate teaching. We want to educate people. But what is special about Michigan State compared to those thousands of other fine institutions of higher education is the production of new knowledge, advancing our civilization through discovery. And that is really what we're here for. Now, we try to hire the best faculty possible. And I often make a joke that, if we're doing our job right, each year's cohort of new faculty is maybe a little bit better than the last one. And maybe a lot better than the cohort that was hired 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So I don't want to put any pressure on you, but you're expected to surpass, otherwise we'll get blamed, you're expected to surpass all of the existing faculty that are on campus. Okay, that's what we want from you. And the way you do that, of course, is to obtain the funding that's necessary for your research, publish in high-impact journals, and really move the knowledge frontier forward in your chosen discipline. And our office, the Office of the Vice President for Research and Graduate Studies, OVPRGS, we're here to help you do that. Our only reason to exist is to help you. Okay? We are not here to tell you what to do, although we do have some compliance responsibilities. So, we can't let you do, if you do mean things to mice in your lab, we have to be well aware of those mean things that you're doing and register them, et cetera. But by and large, we're really here in a support role, and we're here to help you. And our doors are always open for that purpose. Now, initially, if you're a young faculty member, and given the difficult funding climate that we all operate in, it's challenging enough just to get that first grant, just to get that first level of support to get your lab started. However, for more senior faculty, and as you progress in your career, we hope that you'll be able to compete for large multi-investigator grants, center grants, and we're also here to support you to do that. Our office has grant writers and grant editors, so that if there's some very ambitious proposal that you're trying to put together and maybe it requires herding a lot of cats, we have people available to help you with that process. If your research leads to intellectual property or things that are commercializable, we have a whole infrastructure to help in that process. So we have something called Business Connect, which helps MSU researchers connect to outside companies that might license your research or might fund your research. MSU Technologies and MSU Spartan Innovations are involved in the creation of new companies, filing patents, and all of that can be found here. And again, if you have any interest in that direction, our doors are always open. If you go over to the offices where Business Connect is and MSU Technologies and Spartan Innovations, you will not only see interesting people, IP attorneys, people who are experienced with startups, you'll see actually hordes of students beavering away, working on their startups, because there's actually a big incubator space there, and you'll see lots of people working there. So it's quite an interesting environment. There are competitive university-wide grants that we award through our office. A big chunk of the funds for those grants come from the MSU Foundation. In my remarks the other day, I mentioned this drug cisplatin that was discovered here at MSU, and a lot of the monies that resulted for the university from cisplatin are held in this MSU Research Foundation, and they give back some of their income each year to fund these internal research resources. They are not, now, when you hear me talk, you probably hear me always mentioning examples which come from, or predominantly from science and technology and things like that, it's from STEM. But obviously, we value the humanities and the arts as well here. And so there's a specific set of funding programs called HARP, which are specifically focused at people who are in the humanities and arts. Now, I want to say a little bit about promotion and tenure here, because the way that promotion and tenure is done at MSU, it starts in the department, at the department level, it moves up to the college level, and then once the deans and the chairs have all weighed in, at the college level, the files go into the central administration. There is a final review committee on which I serve, and that final review committee is the only committee which has to read all of the files every year. And with a university of our size, it's something like 160 files, cases, that I personally have to read through each year. And then we advise the provost who makes the final decision on promotion or tenure. And she generally is too busy to actually read all of the 160 cases, so she's typically only really carefully reading the difficult cases. Because promotion and tenure falls partly in my purview, I just want to say a few things about it here. What should you expect from your department? You should expect clearly stated expectations and clear evaluations of your work. We never want anyone to go into the tenure and promotion process and then be surprised. So we don't want someone who thinks they're doing extremely well, but they're actually not, or someone who thinks they're not doing well, but they actually are. So that communication, obviously, it's a human thing. It may not be functioning very well in your department, but it should be. I think that every good department on campus should have a mentor assigned to you, should have senior leadership that meets regularly with you, and you should get regular feedback about how you're doing, how your case would look as it proceeds up the chain within the university. I'm not directly in any kind of supervisory role over those departments and how they handle promotion and tenure, but certainly if you feel it's not being handled well and if you feel that you're not getting those clear guidelines and expectations, you should try to escalate that up within your college to improve those processes within your department. I guess this is my last slide. Is that true? Okay. So let me just conclude by saying, again, we are here to help make you successful. In my remarks the other day, I said something like, only 1 in 1,000 people in our society has the privilege of pursuing curiosity-driven research. The luxury or the privilege of being able to wake up in the morning and have a great idea and then go into their office or their lab and try to do something with that idea, and that is their main responsibility. You are among that very privileged 1 in 1,000 people. If you think about the state of Michigan, there are 10 million people living in the state of Michigan. There are maybe 10,000 at most people who are primarily focused on the creation of knowledge in a curiosity-driven way. And 10,000 divided by 10 million is about 1 in 1,000. So I wasn't making that number up. So you are our special 1 in 1,000 folks, and we want you to succeed. So let me stop there, and then if I would love to answer some questions. Now remember, this is the part of the class where the professor has stopped talking and is looking at you to say something. So whatever you do to me, karma will return to you on your first day of class. Hand over there. Whoever has their hand up, I can't see you, but oh, yes.
You mentioned internal grants in arts and humanities and in STEM. Are there social science opportunities for internal funding?
Yes. The strategic partnership grants actually are for everybody. So anybody can participate in the strategic partnership grants. Those are typically multi-investigator grants. So you would apply with a team. And the goal is for that funding to help that team accomplish something, maybe some preliminary work that otherwise can't be funded, and then to position you to be able to apply for something ambitious like a big center grant or something like that. Yes?
Yeah, so it's probably a very specific question because I'm from the law school, but would I work with MSU technologies as well if I have a...
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, so if you have some great idea, you should definitely go over to MSU Technologies and talk to them about it. Anybody who's on campus. Question?
What is your dual-use oversight process you'd like to do?
Wow, our dual-use oversight process. Are you doing it the next? Okay, so I think Paul is going to discuss that in I won't say mind-numbing detail, but in great detail, in important detail. Question? Yes?
Are there any plans to mitigate the burden of growing research regulations?
Is someone tweeting questions to you or something? Are you kidding? Really? Okay. Oh, okay. So this is a big issue for all of us, and the asymmetry is that if you're in government, it's very easy for you to increase regulation because the burden doesn't fall on you, it falls on other people who are sort of invisible, faceless people, but you cover your behind as a bureaucrat or a politician by imposing those regulations. Because if something bad happens, you can always say, oh, but we asked the universities to do X, Y, and Z, and if it didn't happen, it's not our fault, it's their fault. So this asymmetric fact of life is just, it's like a ratchet. It only turns one way, unfortunately. And so as a body, so we belong to the AAU, American Association of, is that right? American Association of Universities, is that what it stands for? So that it's almost a lobbying body that talks to Congress, talks to politicians, the federal bureaucracy, and tries to prevent undue burden from federal regulations. But I honestly have to say it's kind of a losing battle. So I would say if you just graphed over time the regulatory burden on universities, it's just gone up and up and up. So we want to stop it, but I'm not that optimistic that we will be able to stop it. Question?
Steve, can I plant one at you?
Yeah, sure.
Folks may encounter the need for matching support for equipment or otherwise on their early proposals, and they might like to hear about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we always, so a little bit about my background. I guess my background is primarily academic, but I have some background also in startups and venture capital. With what limited budget we have in our office, we try to be a little bit like a venture fund in the sense that if faculty come to us with good ideas, we try to help them. And if that means matching some cost, maybe even making some ab initio investment in some idea that's very promising, we actually try to do that even though obviously we're resource constrained. Now, the right process for doing something like that is typically to first go to your associate dean of research, who's somebody that we communicate with regularly, and they provide a little bit of a gating function so that if, obviously everybody would love to have some, free funds to do work on some project. So typically that person is going to maybe make some initial evaluation of, okay, is this a reasonable thing? And at that point though, if they think it's a good idea, then they're able to schedule meetings with us so that we can talk to you about them. So we want to have initiative from the faculty. In fact, if we had much more, if somebody made an increase in our office budget, one of the main things I would always want to put it toward is funding for faculty ideas that can't otherwise be funded through other means. So it's something that we encourage you to do. Last chance for questions. Okay, if not, well, thank you for your time. And welcome to MSU.